Can we have your leftovers? The question was so faint that most of the restaurant missed it, but Isabella Hartman didn't. Her diamond-ringed hand froze above her champagne glass. Slowly, she turned her head toward the tall glass window of the five-star dining hall. 2 children stood outside. Their faces were thin, pale beneath streaks of dirt, their clothes torn at the seams. But what caught Isabella's breath was not their hunger, not their shaking hands pressed desperately against the glass. It was the necklaces. Each boy wore a chain, tarnished with age, but at the center of each chain dangled half a pearl, 2 halves, clearly once one whole. Isabella's fingers trembled, her glass nearly slipping from her grip. Those pearls. She knew them. She had seen them before, many years ago, around the neck of someone she had lost forever. Gasps swept the restaurant as the twins' small voices carried again. Please, just what you don't need, just the scraps you'll throw away. The wealthy diners shifted uncomfortably. One woman whispered, "Filthy little beggars." A man snorted, "They should be taken off the street." The waiter hurried to Isabella's side, bowing low. "Madam, shall I call security? They are disturbing your evening." Isabella didn't answer. Her emerald green gown rustled as she stood, her chair sliding back. The room grew silent. Every eye followed her as she walked across the marble floor, her heels striking like a ticking clock. At the window, Isabella raised one manicured hand, halting the guards. She leaned closer, staring through the glass at the 2 trembling boys. Her gaze dropped again to the necklaces resting against their frail chests, and her heartbeat quickened. "Where did you get those?" she asked softly, but her voice cut through the restaurant like thunder. The twins exchanged a nervous glance. They had expected to be chased away, maybe mocked, but not this. Not questioned about the only treasures they carried. The older boy lifted his chin timidly. "Our mother gave them to us." The words hit Isabella like a blow, a flash of memory, her sister's face smiling as she held up a pearl necklace years ago, saying, "We'll always stay connected no matter what." Isabella's chest tightened. She forced her composure, but her hand gripped the edge of the table beside her. "Your mother?" she whispered. The younger twin nodded quickly, his voice fragile. "Before she died, she gave us each half so we'd always remember her." The entire restaurant leaned in, sensing the tension. Diners forgot their meals, their forks suspended midair. The twins' story was only beginning, and already it had shaken the untouchable billionaire woman. Isabella's diamond earrings glinted as she drew closer to the glass. Her face was pale now, her voice trembling despite her effort to remain calm. "Tell me everything," she demanded. The boys looked at each other, their eyes wide, their stomachs growling with hunger. Then the older one swallowed hard, his small voice breaking. "It all started when our father left. Our father used to work on a construction site," the older twin began, his small hands tightening around the edge of his chair as if clinging to the memory itself. He wasn't always cruel. But one day, when the foreman shouted at him and the pay was cut again, he came home angry. He blamed Mama. He said she was bad luck, said she ruined his life. The boy's voice cracked, but he pressed on. That night he packed his bag and walked out. He didn't even look back. We thought he'd come home the next day, but he never did. The younger twin swallowed hard, tears stinging his eyes. After that, Mama tried to hold us together. She found work in a factory. Every morning before the sun came up, she tied her hair back, kissed us, and went to work. She came home with her hands bleeding, her clothes soaked in sweat. But she still smiled at us. A lump rose in Isabella's throat. She could see it. Clara's face, just as she remembered. Stubborn, proud, always smiling through pain. The older boy's gaze fell to his lap. The factory money wasn't enough. Rent piled up. Neighbors grew angry when Mama couldn't pay. One day the landlord came with men. They threw our things in the street. We begged him to let us stay. Mama cried, but they pushed us out like trash. Gasps rippled through the room. Some diners wiped their eyes. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The younger twin continued softly, his voice trembling. We had nowhere to go. Mama led us to an alley behind a bakery. At night we curled together, and the smell of bread made our stomachs hurt worse. We searched for scraps in bins. Sometimes dogs chased us away. Sometimes people spit at us. He paused, his lips quivering. Then, Mama got sick. She coughed every night, her body shaking. She grew weaker and weaker until she couldn't walk to the factory anymore. She tried to hide it, but we saw the blood on her handkerchief. The older boy squeezed his brother's hand, his own eyes glassy. One night she called us close. She was lying on a blanket we found near the garbage. She reached for her necklace, made a pearl with 2 halves. She broke it apart and pressed one piece into each of our hands. She told us, "This will keep you together. This will remind you of me. No matter where you go, you'll always carry my heart." The younger twin clutched his half, showing it to Isabella through the glass. That was the last thing she gave us. That night, she closed her eyes and never opened them again. The entire restaurant was silent. No fork clinked, no glass rattled. Even the air felt heavy. Isabella's hand trembled against her chest, her breath shallow. The pearl necklace, the same one she and Clara had once shared as girls, now hung around these boys' fragile necks. She whispered hoarsely, almost to herself, "Clara, my sister." The twins stared at her, startled, and the wealthy diners, sensing a secret far deeper than leftovers, leaned in closer, desperate to know what would be revealed next. After a long pause, the older twin lowered his eyes. His voice came out softer now, like the weight of the memory was pressing down on his chest. After Mama died, we buried her with our own hands. We found a patch of land outside the city, near the old railway line. We didn't have a coffin, didn't have money for anything proper. We wrapped her in the only blanket we had and dug the dirt until our fingers bled. We promised her we would stay together and survive, somehow. The younger twin's lips trembled as he nodded. After that, we wandered the streets. Some nights we slept under bridges, other nights in empty stalls after the market closed. People walked past us like we were ghosts. We begged for food, but most of the time, no one cared. The diners in the restaurant shifted uncomfortably. One woman dabbed her eyes with her napkin. Another man muttered, "Children shouldn't live like that." Then the older twin's voice lifted, carrying a note of wonder. One day we were near a supermarket. We were hungry, looking for scraps, and then we saw it, a wallet lying on the ground. The younger twin's eyes lit faintly, recalling it. It was full. Dollars, Visa cards, an international passport. For a moment we thought God had answered us, that we could finally eat. But then, he hesitated, looking down. Mama's voice came back to us. She always told us, "Don't take what isn't yours even when you're starving." So we opened the passport. The older finished. We saw the name, the address. We decided we would return it. Gasps rippled through the room again. Several diners shook their heads in disbelief. To return such treasure when starving? The twins' choice alone stunned the crowd. We walked to the house on the ID card, the younger continued. It was like a palace. Big gates, guards everywhere. We told the gateman about the wallet. At first he laughed at us, he thought we were lying, but we showed him. And after a while, the man himself came out. The older boy's eyes softened, his lips curving faintly. The billionaire, a man in a fine suit, tall and stern at first. He asked us who we were, why we had his wallet. We told him everything, that we were homeless, that our mother had died, that we found it near the supermarket and didn't touch a thing. The younger twin added quickly. He was shocked. He said he had gone back twice to search for it, because the documents inside were worth more than gold to him. Without them, he would have lost his biggest business deals. The older twin's voice trembled as he remembered the moment. Then he looked at us. He asked, "Do you have anyone?" We shook our heads, and for the first time in so long, someone didn't look away. The restaurant leaned forward, caught in the story's pull. Isabella's eyes shimmered. The boy whispered, "That day, he took us in." The diners gasped. The twins, once beggars, had been adopted by a billionaire. The older twin's eyes brightened as he recalled the memory. The billionaire welcomed us into his home. For the first time in our lives, we had real beds, soft blankets, food on the table every single day. We couldn't believe it. It felt like a dream. The younger one nodded quickly, his face lighting up despite the hunger lines still etched into his cheeks. He gave us clothes, shoes, even books. He told us we were smart boys, that we deserved a chance, and he enrolled us in school. The restaurant murmured with surprise. Some smiled, impressed. Others whispered skeptically. But the twins went on, their voices trembling with emotion. At school, the older continued, the teachers were amazed. We could solve math problems faster than anyone else. We studied every chance we got because we knew this chance was a gift, and the billionaire was proud of us. Isabella listened, her throat tight. She could see the man they described, stern but compassionate, the kind of man who rewarded honesty and loyalty. But then the younger twin's voice darkened. Not everyone was happy we were there. A silence fell again. The boy's eyes flicked downward, as though he feared saying the next part. His wife hated us. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Diners leaned forward eagerly. She had no children of her own, the older explained, and she thought we were her husband's secret sons from another woman. She looked at us like we were dirt. She told us to stay out of her sight. She shouted at the servants for letting us eat too much. Sometimes, she locked us outside the house when the billionaire wasn't home. The younger's voice quivered. She said we were bad luck, that we were thieves, that we would steal her husband's wealth. Isabella's hands curled into fists at her sides. She could almost see this woman, jealous, bitter, cruel. The older twin's jaw tightened. One night we heard her yelling at him. She accused him of bringing us into the house to replace her. He denied it. He told her we were just good boys who deserved a chance. He said he would adopt us legally no matter what she thought. The restaurant buzzed with whispers. The courage of that billionaire stirred admiration, but the mention of the wife's fury set nerves on edge. The younger twin lowered his eyes, his voice dropping. After that night, she looked at us differently, not just with hate, with something colder, like she wanted us gone, forever. A hush swept through the restaurant. Isabella felt her stomach twist. She knew where this kind of hatred could lead. She had seen greed destroy families before. What did she do? A diner whispered involuntarily, forgetting this was no stage play but the confession of two starving boys. The twins looked at each other, fear flashing across their faces. Then the older one leaned forward, his voice low but heavy with the weight of truth. She made a plan. The crowd gasped. Isabella's breath caught. The younger twin's hands trembled as he whispered, "A plan to kill him." The older twin's voice dropped to a near whisper, and the entire restaurant leaned in, straining to catch every word. She hated us so much that she went to the family mechanic. She gave him money, bribed him, told him to tamper with the brakes on the car that always picked her husband up from the airport. Gasps rippled around the room. A fork slipped from someone's hand and clattered onto the marble floor. The younger twin shivered as he remembered. We didn't know at first. All we knew was that the billionaire was traveling abroad for business. He promised he would come back with gifts for us, new books, shoes, and a surprise for our studies. We were so excited. We counted the days. The older twin's lips trembled. Then the day came. His driver went to the airport. They picked him up. On the way home, he choked, his words faltering. The younger's tears spilled over as he finished the sentence. The car never made it. The brakes failed on the highway. It rolled and rolled in. His small chest heaved as the memory crushed him. The billionaire died. The restaurant fell into a stunned silence. Some diners pressed hands to their mouths. A woman dabbed her eyes. Even the waiter beside Isabella stood frozen, horrified. The older twin wiped at his face roughly, his voice bitter now. When the news reached the house, we thought she would cry. We thought she would grieve. But she smiled. She actually smiled. And when we begged her to let us stay, she said we were cursed, that we had brought him bad luck. She shouted that he was dead because of us. The younger twin's voice cracked. She kicked us out. She threw our clothes into the street. We had no one left. Not a home, not a family. Just each other. Isabella's nails dug into her palm. Her chest burned with fury. Every fiber of her being screamed at the cruelty of it. She had seen greed before, but to kill one's own husband and then throw children into the streets, it was beyond monstrous. The older twin lowered his gaze, his voice softer now. So we went back to the alleys, back to hunger, back to begging. The world didn't care. People mocked us. Dogs chased us. But we remembered what Mama said, that we had to stay together, that we had to fight. The younger nodded, his tears dripping onto the table. And we remembered the billionaire's words too. He told us we were smart, that we had a future. So even though we were homeless again, we promised ourselves we wouldn't give up. The restaurant sat in silence, broken only by the faint sound of someone sobbing quietly at the back. Isabella's eyes glistened as she studied the necklaces again, her heart splitting between sorrow and rage. But before anyone could speak, the younger twin raised his head. His voice, though shaky, carried across the room. And that's when we met someone else, someone who changed everything again. The diners gasped, hungry for the next twist. Isabella leaned forward, her heart pounding. "Who?" she asked. The older twin exchanged a glance with his brother. Then with a small, trembling smile, he whispered, "A girl." The older twin took a shaky breath as if even recalling the memory gave him strength. We were sitting outside a shop one afternoon. Our stomachs hurt so badly from hunger we could barely stand. People walked past like we weren't even there. And then we heard crying. The younger twin's face softened. She was about our age, a girl in a neat school uniform standing near the gate of her private school. She was holding her books against her chest, tears rolling down her face. Her driver hadn't come yet. She looked so lost. The diners leaned in, their curiosity sharpened. The older twin continued. We asked her what was wrong. At first she pulled away, scared of us. Two dirty boys, strangers on the street. But we spoke softly. We told her we didn't mean harm. Finally, she whispered that she had failed her math test. Badly. And she said her mother would be so disappointed. The younger twin smiled faintly at the memory. We told her we were good at math, that Mama used to teach us numbers with chalk on broken bricks. She laughed at first, thinking we were joking. But then we asked to see her test paper. We solved the hardest question right there on the sidewalk. The older twin nodded, his voice firmer now. Her eyes lit up. She couldn't believe it. We explained the steps to her slowly, so she could understand. And when we were done, she asked us to help her again. The restaurant murmured. Some diners smiled, others shook their heads in disbelief. The younger twin's lips curved softly. Every day after school, she would sneak away before her driver came. We sat on the curb, with her book spread out. We taught her fractions, equations, word problems. We showed her tricks Mama taught us, and she listened. The older twin's chest swelled with pride. Her grades started to rise. The teachers praised her. Her mother thought she was just studying harder, but really, it was us. Two homeless boys teaching a rich girl math on the street. Isabella's throat tightened. Her mind raced. She could already feel the truth tugging at her chest, but she didn't dare say it aloud. The younger twin's eyes sparkled faintly through his tears. One day, She brought us snacks from her lunchbox. She said we were her friends, her only friends who never laughed at her for struggling. She even promised not to tell anyone about us because she knew if people found out, they'd mock her for learning from beggars. The restaurant was utterly silent now. Every diner leaned forward, hanging on each word. The older twin lowered his voice, almost whispering. We didn't know who she really was. We only knew she was kind and smart, and that teaching her made us feel human again. Isabella's heart pounded in her chest. The pieces were sliding into place too perfectly to be coincidence. She leaned forward, her voice trembling, almost pleading. This girl, what was her name? The twins hesitated. Then the younger one whispered. Her name was Ava. Gasps tore through the restaurant. Isabella's wine glass shook in her hand. Ava, her only daughter. The world seemed to tilt. The restaurant erupted in whispers. Guests leaned across their tables, stunned by the name that had just been spoken. Isabella's breath caught in her throat. Ava, her Ava, the daughter she had raised in silk and privilege, the daughter she thought she knew completely. Isabella steadied herself against the table as her diamond earrings trembled in the light. Ava, she whispered, almost in disbelief. The twins nodded slowly, their eyes wide. Yes, that's her name. Ava. Gasps swept the room again, louder this time. Diners turned to each other, whispering, The billionaire's daughter? Impossible. They knew her? Isabella's chest rose and fell rapidly. She waved her hand to the waiter. Bring them to my home now. This conversation isn't ending here. The twins, weak from hunger, clung to each other as guards escorted them out of the restaurant. Not with force, but with reverence now. A murmur of awe followed them. The crowd didn't see two beggars anymore. They saw a mystery unfolding in real time. When they arrived at Isabella's mansion later that evening, the grand doors opened to reveal Ava herself. She had been waiting for her mother, standing at the top of the marble staircase in her school uniform, her hair tied back neatly. But when she saw the twins, her eyes widened, and then filled with tears. Mama! Ava cried, rushing down the stairs, her voice echoing through the grand hall. It's them. These are the boys I told you about. Isabella froze. What do you mean? Ava turned to her mother, clutching her arm, her voice trembling with joy. They're the ones who taught me. They're the reason I passed my math exams. They're the reason my teachers praised me. The twins stood frozen in shock. Ava was not just a rich girl after all. She was the daughter of the woman who now stood before them, the very billionaire who had stopped them at the restaurant. The younger twins' lips quivered. You didn't tell us who your mother was. Ava shook her head quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. I couldn't. I was scared people would mock me if they knew I was learning from homeless boys. But I never forgot you. I prayed I'd see you again. Isabella's throat tightened, her eyes brimming with tears. She turned sharply to her daughter. Ava, you're telling me they taught you? Every lesson? Ava nodded fiercely. Yes, Mama. They were patient. They were kind. They believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The twins exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding. For the first time in years, someone was speaking about them with pride. Isabella's gaze fell back to the necklaces on their necks, then to her daughter's tearful face. Her hand trembled as she reached out, resting it on each boy's shoulder. Fate has brought you back to me, through my own child. The mansion grew still, the moment heavy with destiny. But even as the warmth of reunion began to bloom, Isabella's mind sharpened. She knew there were secrets still buried, dark truths that had not yet surfaced. She whispered, more to herself than to them. The world thinks your story is tragedy, but I see something else. I see unfinished justice. The twins looked up at her, startled, and Ava clutched her mother's arm, asking softly, Mama, what do you mean? Isabella led the twins and Ava into her study, a vast room lined with bookshelves and old family portraits. A fire flickered in the hearth, throwing long shadows across the floor. She gestured for the boys to sit, her voice calm but firm. "Tell me everything," Isabella said. "Not just about Ava, about what happened after your mother, and after the man who took you in." The twins looked at each other nervously. For a moment, silence stretched heavy between them. Then the older boy nodded as though he'd decided there was no turning back. He spoke softly, but his words were sharp as glass. "The billionaire who took us in saved our lives. He treated us like his sons. But his wife," he clenched his fists, "she hated us. She thought we were his children from another woman. She said we would steal her husband's wealth. She never forgave him for keeping us." The younger twin swallowed, his voice quivering. "We tried to stay out of her way, but it didn't matter. She found reasons to punish us. Some nights she locked us outside without food. She whispered that we were cursed, that we would bring her husband to ruin." Isabella's eyes darkened. She leaned forward. "And then?" The older twin's lips trembled. "Then she made her plan." The flames in the fireplace crackled louder, as if echoing his words. "She went to the family mechanic," the boy continued. "We overheard her once, promising him money, telling him to tamper with the car brakes. We didn't understand at first. We were too young. But later, we knew." Ava gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Isabella's jaw tightened, her knuckles white against the armrest of her chair. The younger twin's eyes filled with tears. "The day he came back from his business trip, we waited by the gate. We were so excited. He promised gifts. He promised to tell us about the world outside. But when the driver's car came back, it was crushed, broken. They said the brakes failed." The older twin's voice broke. "He died. And when he did," she didn't cry. She smiled. She blamed us. She threw us out into the street, said we were bad luck, said we had killed him. The room fell silent except for the crackling fire. Ava's tears streamed freely. Isabella sat rigid, her chest rising and falling sharply. She could feel the rage building inside her, not just as a billionaire, but as a woman who knew betrayal when she saw it. Finally, Isabella stood, pacing slowly across the room. Her heels clicked sharply against the wooden floor. "What was her name?" she asked coldly. The boys exchanged a look. The younger one whispered, "Margaret." Isabella froze. Her eyes narrowed, her mind racing. Margaret, she knew that name. A woman who still moved in elite circles, respected, even admired. The thought made her stomach churn. She turned back to the boys, her voice low but deadly. "If what you say is true, then she is not just cruel, she is a murderer." The twins shivered at the steel in her tone. Ava clung to her mother's arm. "What are you going to do, Mama?" she whispered. Isabella's eyes blazed. She stepped closer to the boys, resting her hands gently on their shoulders. "I am going to finish what your mother, Clara, could not. I am going to protect you, and together we are going to uncover the truth." The older twin swallowed, hope flickering faintly in his gaze. "But how?" Isabella's lips curved into a cold, determined smile. "By exposing Margaret, by tearing down everything she built on lies, and by making sure the world knows exactly who killed the man who saved you." The firelight danced across Isabella's face as she stood over the twins, her expression carved in steel. "Margaret thinks she erased you from the world, but she forgot one thing." She reached for their necklaces, brushing her fingers gently over the split pearls. "The truth always finds its way back." The twins sat still, hearts pounding. Ava leaned forward, whispering fiercely, "Mama, you have to stop her. She can't get away with this." Isabella nodded slowly. "She won't. But justice requires evidence, and for evidence we need eyes and ears." She reached for her phone and pressed a button. "Harper," she said to the voice on the other end, Assemble a team. I want Margaret Monroe investigated top to bottom. Every transaction, every account, every mechanic she's ever bribed. If she sneezed in the last 10 years, I want to know. The twins exchanged stunned glances. For the first time, someone was fighting for them with power, not pity. Days turned into weeks. Investigators in dark suits shadowed Margaret's every move. Files were gathered, accounts traced, bribes uncovered. Piece by piece, the puzzle of her betrayal came together. But Isabella didn't stop there. She turned her attention to the boys. "You will not just be my sister's children," she told them firmly one morning. "You will be proof that the world cannot break those who refuse to bend." She enrolled them in Ava's prestigious school, despite the murmurs of disapproval from wealthy parents. On the first day, whispers trailed the twins like shadows. Street rats. Beggars in uniforms. They don't belong here. But when the math teacher posed a complex problem no student could solve, the older twin rose slowly, chalk in hand. His thin fingers shook at first, then steadied as numbers filled the board. Step by step, he solved the problem, the class falling into stunned silence. The younger twin followed days later in science class, building a makeshift circuit with scraps from the lab. The bulb flickered to life, and the teacher's eyes widened. "Genius," he whispered. Word spread quickly. The homeless twins were not charity cases. They were prodigies. Ava stood proudly by their side, defending them against mockery. "Laugh if you want," she snapped at one rich boy. "But they're smarter than all of you." Isabella watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling. Clara's boys were rising. Meanwhile, her investigators struck gold, a hidden bank account in Margaret's name, deposits that matched the mechanic's confession, old letters where she raged about her husband favoring strays over his own wife. The evidence was damning. One evening, Isabella gathered the twins and Ava in her study once more. She spread the files across the desk, her eyes blazing with satisfaction. "It's all here. Proof of the sabotage, proof of the murder, proof that she framed you with lies." The twins stared at the papers, their young faces tight with both sorrow and relief. The older twin whispered, "So, the world will finally know?" Isabella rested her hands on their shoulders, her voice steady. "Yes, and when it does, Margaret Monroe will fall." The fire cracked behind her, casting her shadow long and powerful across the wall. And for the first time since Clara's death, the twins allowed themselves to believe. Their suffering had not been in vain. The day of reckoning came sooner than anyone expected. The ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel, filled with the city's elite, buzzed with anticipation. Margaret Monroe had been invited to speak at a charity gala, her reputation still polished in public despite the rot beneath. She walked in draped in jewels, her chin lifted high, her smile sharp. But Isabella Hartman was already waiting. She stood on the stage, calm and regal, the twins and Ava at her side. Cameras flashed as Isabella tapped the microphone. "Tonight," she began, her voice steady, "we gather to honor truth, not lies, to protect the innocent, not the guilty." Margaret frowned, her glass of champagne pausing mid-air. Isabella lifted a file from the podium. "For years, the world has believed a tragic accident claimed the life of one of this city's greatest men. But the truth is far darker." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Margaret's smile faltered. Isabella's eyes locked on her enemy. This woman, Margaret Monroe, tampered with his car brakes. She bribed the mechanic. She orchestrated his death. And when two boys he loved stood in her way, she cast them out, blaming them for her crime. The ballroom erupted in shock. Reporters leapt to their feet. Guests shouted. Margaret staggered back, her face draining of color. "That's a lie," Margaret screamed, but her voice trembled. "She's framing me." Isabella's lips curved coldly. She gestured to the side. The mechanic himself stepped forward, flanked by investigators. His voice cracked as he confessed, "It's true. She paid me. She told me to sabotage the car. I did it. And I've lived with the guilt ever since. Margaret's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Gasps rose again as uniformed officers pushed through the crowd, their badges glinting under the chandeliers. You're under arrest, one officer barked, seizing the mechanic first. Another pair of officers grabbed Margaret's arms as she shrieked and fought. You can't do this to me. I'm his wife. I'm his legacy. No, Isabella said firmly, her voice ringing over the chaos. You are his murderer. The twins stepped forward, their small frames dwarfed by the cameras flashing all around. Their necklaces gleamed under the lights as the older one spoke. She called us beggars. She threw us into the street, but tonight, everyone knows the truth. The younger added, his voice strong despite the tears streaming down his face. We didn't kill him. She did. And now, Mama can rest in peace. The ballroom exploded in applause. Reporters shouted questions. Margaret screamed as the police dragged her and the mechanic away, their empire collapsing in an instant. Isabella turned to the twins, pulling them close with one arm while Ava clung to the other. Cameras captured the image. The untouchable billionaire embracing the children who had once begged for scraps. She raised her head, her voice carrying like thunder. They begged for leftovers, but I tell you now they were never beggars. They are the future, and their story has only just begun. The room roared. Justice had been served. But for Isabella and the twins, the fight was not over. It was only the beginning of something greater. After the chaos of the gala, the story of the homeless twins spread like wildfire. Newspapers splashed their faces across front pages. Twins of Truth exposed socialite killer. News anchors called them heroes. Social media hailed them as symbols of honesty and resilience. But Isabella Hartman didn't let them stop there. You will not be remembered only for surviving, she told them firmly, weeks after the gala. You will be remembered for what you build. And the twins took those words to heart. At school, they poured their souls into learning. While some classmates still mocked their past, others began to admire them. Teachers called them prodigies, their notebooks filled with equations, sketches, and wild ideas. One afternoon in the library, the older twin whispered, "What if we build an app that helps students like Ava? Something that explains math step by step, the way Mama taught us." The younger twin's eyes lit up. And we could make another one, for kids with no teachers at all, so no one has to feel lost the way we did. Days turned into months. With laptops Isabella provided, they coded late into the night. Ava joined them, testing the programs, giving feedback. Isabella often stood at the doorway of the study, her heart swelling as the tapping of keys and bursts of laughter filled the once silent halls. Their first app launched quietly, but within weeks downloads exploded. Students across the city were using it. Teachers praised it. Parents raved that their children were finally understanding math. Then came the second project, a platform for underprivileged kids to access free lessons. Within a year, it reached thousands of users across the country. International press took notice. Tech conferences invited them to speak. Headlines declared, "From streets to Silicon, homeless twins changing the world." Isabella watched them with pride, but also with tears. Clara's boys had turned pain into brilliance, scars into strength. One morning, an envelope arrived. Inside were letters from top universities, Harvard, MIT, Oxford, full scholarships, not just for one, but for both of them. The twins held the letters in their trembling hands, tears streaming down their faces. "Mama would be proud," the younger whispered. Isabella embraced them tightly. Ava squeezed their hands, and for the first time in years, the twins felt the warmth of a real family. But Isabella knew their journey wasn't complete. "You've proven yourselves to the world," she said softly. "But there is one more step, one more thing that will seal your legacy." The twins looked at her curiously. "What is it?" Her eyes burned with both love and determination. "It's time the world knows the full truth. Not just about Margaret, but about Clara, about who you really are. The twins froze, their hearts pounding. It was a bright spring morning when Isabella gathered the twins and Ava on the steps of her mansion. Reporters lined the street, cameras flashing as the family stepped into the sunlight together. This was not a press stunt. It was a declaration. Isabella raised her hand for silence. Her voice carried over the crowd. Months ago, 2 boys begged me for leftovers, but they were never beggars. They were fighters. They were survivors. And today, they are inventors, leaders, and the sons of my twin sister, Clara Hartman. Gasps swept through the reporters. Questions exploded. Isabella lifted the boys' necklaces high. These pearls belong to Clara. She gave them to her sons before she died, and fate has brought them back to me. The twins stood tall, no longer thin shadows of hunger, but confident young men with fire in their eyes. The older one spoke into the microphone, his voice steady. We were thrown away. We were mocked. But we refused to give up. We turned pain into purpose. The younger added firmly, and we dedicate our work to every child who feels forgotten, because no one should ever have to beg for scraps when they were born to shine. The crowd erupted in applause. Some reporters wiped tears from their eyes. Just then, police officials stepped forward. On behalf of the state, one officer announced, Margaret Monroe and her accomplice mechanic have been convicted of fraud, murder, and conspiracy. They will spend the rest of their lives behind bars. The audience cheered. Justice had not only been promised, it had been delivered. Isabella turned to the boys, her eyes glistening. Clara's spirit lives on in you. You are her legacy, and now the world knows. Ava hugged her cousins tightly, whispering, You're my brothers now. Always. Months later, the twins stood on a global stage at an international tech summit. Their app had been downloaded by millions. Their faces appeared on screens across continents. Scholarships poured in. Awards followed, but none of it compared to the moment when they looked at each other, holding their necklaces, and whispered, Mama, we made it. Back home, Isabella sat by the fireplace, watching them laugh with Ava over textbooks and new ideas. She smiled through her tears. For years, she had thought she lost her sister forever. But through these boys, Clara had returned. And as the fire crackled, Isabella's voice narrated the truth the world would never forget. They once begged for leftovers, but now, the world begs for their brilliance. This is not the end of their story. It is only the beginning.